who knows a thing or two about America's role in the world. It's Congressman Mike Turner, a Republican from Ohio, who's also the chairman of the U.S. delegation to the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. I had the honor of serving with Mr. Turner in the Congress, and I thank you, sir, for being here. When I thought about what was going on with NATO, look, I was convinced when I was a member of Congress, you probably knew more than just about anybody, at least in the House of Representatives, as it relates to NATO. Earlier, I put up a graphic about the tens of billions of dollars that are now starting to flow to our NATO partners. What sort of effect do you think Trump has had, although unconventional, in pushing our NATO partners to pony up and pay their fair share?
Absolutely. He's had a huge impact. And this is an important impact because this goes right to not only just our national security, but the national security of the overall alliance. You know, in 2014 at the Wales summit, the NATO allies made a commitment to reach 2%. This is something that they agreed to. It's not being imposed upon them by the United States. But at the same time, they were not reaching this goal. President after president, Secretary of Defense after Secretary of Defense would point this out and would chastise our NATO allies, but no real movement was being made. The president has come in, is holding them accountable, requiring that they come forward with plans to reach the goal. And as you just described, you know, an untold amount of money is now flowing into their own militaries, which then are contributed overall to NATO's capability. He's having a huge and very positive impact on the capability and the funding for NATO militaries' goals and objectives.
You know what's fascinating to me about this? We're going to show you a quick bit of footage. This is Donald Trump on Oprah Winfrey's program 30 years ago. Listen to what Donald Trump said 30 years ago.
What would you do differently, Donald?
I'd make our allies, forgetting about the enemies you can't talk to so easily, I'd make our allies pay their fair share.
Pretty interesting that he said that. I thought it was actually interesting watching that for about the fifth time. You know, talking to our enemies, it's not so easy, and I think we kind of demonstrated that. But for him to say pushing our allies to phony up and pay their fair share, I mean, that's something that Donald Trump has done. How does that work in terms of conventional forces, but then also the space race? You've heard the president announce a new push there. Estonia, a NATO ally, is critical in their cyber front. What's the balance there, and how is that money? How would you like to see that money spent?
Well, I think, first off, I think the president in articulating even 30 years ago and today that the bill for defending NATO should not be sent to the United States, that the NATO allies should share their burden, is absolutely where the American people are. And I think that needs to be communicated clearly to the allies. Well, you know, Russia itself has an economy somewhere between that of Italy or Spain, not Italy and Spain. Yet they have a military that's capable of threatening all of Europe. What we need to see from our European counterparts are investments in real capabilities. We have forward deployed our forces to help counter some of the aggressiveness of Russia along the border. But they need to look at real capabilities, ground capabilities, air capabilities, so that they can actually deter Russia. This is a real issue of not just, you know, can you win in a conflict, or, you know, how do we engage in deployments, but how do we avoid conflict? And that avoidance of conflict is investing in deterrence, and that's having a military capable of your adversary looking and saying, you know, I don't want to mess with you, this cost would be too high.
But there are a lot of people that are concerned that now that there's $600+ billion, nearly $700 billion going into the military, where other countries, China, Russia, and others, can play at an equal footing with the United States, is in the cyber front. So how do we attack that? Where do we spend that money? And what do we do when we know that Russia is attacking the United States on the cyber front?
Right, absolutely. And you are absolutely correct that we do know this. Well, we're doing it on a couple of levels. One, obviously, is trying to work with both industry and with government infrastructure to try to fortify our electronic systems so that they're not subject to hacking. Working also with our allies so that they're not a backdoor to all of this. But then also, we need to hone our skills, as the president has said, in doing to our adversaries what our adversaries do to us, and making certain that we have an ability to have a presence that also can counter and hold them at bay from hurting us.
Yeah, I think this is one of the big questions for our country and for our population. If somebody were to lob missiles at us, you could fire back. But when somebody attacks us electronically, right, how do you fire back? Congressman Turner, I thank you for joining us tonight, a real expert in this field, and I thank you for being here.